So my name is Eric Lukac. I'm a Belgian doing electronics since a long time.
Yeah.
And my business in modular is called Klavis.
What is your favorite knob, fader, or switch on a piece of gear that you've made, and why?
It's easy. It's the encoder.
Oh yeah.
Because I have it on many of my products.
Yes.
And it is what brings variety into what the product can do.
Yeah.
And typically there are hidden things there that people do not expect and which they appreciate.
What bit of your gear are you most proud of?
I would say the last one, for one reason, is that I'm not as skilled in some domains as others, and in the last one I really went beyond my limits.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Typically the products from Klavis are based on processor doing something in the most advanced possible way that is not available anywhere, but still with not much of a pure analog circuitry around, just basic analog circuitry.
Yeah.
Okay, not that I'm totally ignorant in analog electronics, but in this case with the last one, we push the boundaries because it's the most complex analog stuff I ever designed in my life.
Yeah. Excellent.
And it works fine, so I'm happy.
So it's the challenge of learning.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And that reflects likely something I like in my business, is that I like to learn every day. Everything I don't know is an interesting challenge, a new horizon to discover.
How do you see your gear in the sort of landscape of music?
I would say I would not make a product if it's not bringing something new or sufficiently different to justify making it. Yeah. So whether it is some set of features of better, which is the case, totally unique features that nobody else does.
What music has inspired you to make gear?
Oh, there are two musicians who drove me that way. In the pure electronic music domain, this is Klaus Schulz, which I heard very early because I had someone in the family buying those records, and so I had the opportunity to hear them when I was still quite young.
Yeah.
And the other person is Keith Emerson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What is the most surprising tip or trick or technique that you've discovered about a piece of gear after you've released it?
Again, I would say in the last one, which is called Granity, which is a granular VCF.
Yeah.
The idea came without knowing exactly what it could produce because that did not exist before. Yeah. So I knew it could do interesting things for sure because it had not been done, but I could not imagine what it can do. I just thought about that yesterday talking with someone else. Is how did the first inventor of a voltage control filter could imagine it might be interesting? And I was exactly in the same situation with the Granity, because when you assemble these small grains of filter elements, you can do things. It can create harmonies. It can even transpose the notes like an harmonizer.
Yeah.
And this is something totally unexpected.
How did you get into music making?
I always balance between electronics and arts and music. And I would say it's some kind of natural way of trying to join both. And in my career, I had jobs purely in electronics and semiconductor business, and purely in the music. I had a music shop. I had a music recording studio. I worked as a field application engineer in electronics. I worked as a responsible for documentation in a semiconductor company. And over years, I jumped from one to the other. I ultimately do both at once.
Yeah.
So it was a natural evolution.
How do you most often start a new piece of gear, or where do the ideas come from?
That's a difficult one. In fact, I take notes. I have a thick piles of papers with notes that I take over years, from bits of ideas here and there when I see some equipment which I believe is not complete or doesn't go far away in a given domain. And sometimes you don't know. It appears in your mind, like, again, with this idea of doing a granular filter. You know, a granular oscillator, that's obvious. And then you assemble two different words, say granular, not oscillator, what else? And then you think, is it even possible? Does it make sense, or is it a completely stupid idea? I'm a very analytic person. I'd like to understand things, not just by looking at them, but understanding the why. Why does that exist, and why is it done that way? So I'd like to start from the first principle, from the very beginning. Always sound made, and why we do it that way? Is not another way of doing it, or and so on.
But how do you know when a piece of gear is finished?
That's difficult. The thing is that typically, I'd like to push the boundaries once the design is supposedly frozen.
Yes.
Which is difficult because you always want to make that extra something, and sometimes it goes against going to a clean design.
Yeah.
Because in the end, you would tend to put another additional function based on this and that and variation, and it makes the product too complex.
Yeah.
And so you have to restrain yourself, and this is something I learned to do.
Yeah.
To think, okay, it should remain clean and elegant and intuitive to use.
Yeah.